isn't it like the least? That was. Okay. So they're not, they're under. Yeah, they're not under, but they can't. Wait. They can get pressure.
So fill the tub. This won't fill. So fill the tub in the suture in the pulling.
I'm not even sure when I have to try to do the C-section. I hope not.
No, but I have to, like, when I was doing like the victiming and stuff, we gotta explain it. That's what they basically tell you. It's not there to torture you. My mom was my brother. My brother moved. They had to take her to the emergency of what happened. And I was like, and every time I keep yells at my mom, I was like, April. Yeah. He wanted us over there today. Skincare.
Okay, so dimensional analysis is the process of using our units to help us figure out problems. What was that? Oh, this is looking weight, yeah, losing weight. All right.
So it's looking weight on the average. Lawson.
Coffee hasn't kicked in yet. Literally jumping from my shower to my car, like putting my pants on as I go out the door. You know? It's okay. Well, today would have been that day.
You were expecting to wear clothes.
The other one is hey.
No, there, that won't work. You gonna say 1 year? Just one? Not gonna do any math. I'm just gonna say 1 year. Okay. So you always want to start off with what you're given. What are you given? Okay, so those are the two things you're given. One is considered a quantity. Which one's our quantity? 30 kilograms. Okay. And then the other one is considered conversion or an equivalency. Okay. So, and that is what? 0.2 pounds. Okay. So, what is the first thing that I'm going to want to do? Are there any other equivalencies or conversions that I want to take in consideration? Pounds to kilograms. What is how many pounds will equal a kilogram?
2.2 for 1.
2.2 pounds equals 1 kilogram. Okay. So, how can I use that? I'm going to use all of this. Okay, so you're saying
On the right side, yeah, 2.2.
Okay, 2.2 pounds. Okay, one. Cancel out. Okay, we have to cancel out.
Oh, that's what.
2 pounds.
Okay, so after 1 week over 0.2 pounds. Pounds cancel out.
Years.
How many weeks are in a year?
52.
52.14 weeks. Okay, so at the bottom,
1 year at the bottom. But yeah, we get one.
okay, so I put 52 weeks. Wow. Okay, how many years does it take? 6.3. What's that?
And she said that's a long time. I said that's why I don't lose weight. I literally eat a salad one day and be like, "Oop, it didn't work. Okay, I'm going back to bed."
So that's dimension, or whatever analysis.
That is dimensional analysis. So you're basically using the dimensions of the units to help you work through the problem.
So we come up with our own, or, yeah, 36, like, with our own.
Yeah, you can make your own problem.
Huh?
It's usually you can find a ton of them online, but I prefer your own because then it means you thought about it. Okay. Do you have any questions? All right. Okay, so let's talk about it. Okay, so when we talk about dimensional analysis, we're going to be looking at units, right? So, like I said, we want to start off with what's given. So usually what we start off with what's given, you're going to have either equivalencies that are going to be given, or you're going to have, as you said, a quantity or a something that has something in a unit, right? And then you also have a goal. What do you want to get to, right? We know we wanted to get to years. That was our goal. We want to know the number of years it's going to take her to lose that weight. That's our goal. Okay, so we know that that's where we're going to end up at, just years, right? So, but we know that they gave us how much she wants to lose. She wanted to lose 30 kilograms. Okay. So from there, we have what we call equivalences. How can I change kilograms into pounds? Because we know the rate that she's losing is 0.2 pounds per week. That's going to be our rate for our equivalency, right? So, and that's also given to us that problem. Okay. So if I have kilograms, kilograms is a form of mass, and pounds is a form of mass, but they're not the same type of unit, right? So we have to convert them so they're going to be the same unit. Okay, and so that's the first thing that we did. We know from our handouts or from our lecture notes that 1 kilogram is equal to 2.2 pounds. Right? You guys remember that from yesterday? When I told you I weigh 100? Right?
100 kilograms.
100 kilograms. That's right. Yes, you have to correct me there. 100 kilograms. That's right. We know that would be 240 pounds. Right? Because of that conversion. So then I can use that conversion, right? So you always want to try to get rid of where you're starting from. So I know anytime that I have second fractions, over A, right? I know that that's going to equal 1, right? So whether I write it like A, like that, or if I write it the way I write it like that, this is always going to equal 1, right? Okay, so anything over itself will equal 1. Okay, this line represents division. Okay, and so we do the same thing with units. We can cross out units, kind of keeping track of them. So I have kilograms over kilograms. So if I have kilograms over kilograms, that basically equals 1. Okay, so then that gets rid of that unit, and then that leaves me with now pounds. Right? But pounds is not what I want. I want to get to it, right? So then I use my conversion, and I flip my conversion, and that's the beauty of conversions. I can flip them any way I need to flip them to get to where I want to get to, right? And so I flipped it. I put my 1 week because it's per week. I know per week means 1, right? 1 week, and then I have 0.2 pounds. So then that allows me to get rid of the pounds. Okay. And then the same thing happens with the week. I know that in 1 year, there's 143 weeks. Right? So, or 52 weeks. If you guys want to guess the name. Right there. Right there. Okay. So then we cancel that out. And then we're left with just here. Does that make sense? And so again, it's just following each step. Okay. So, but the thing is that you have to be familiar with conversions, right? Or be able to find them. Okay. Questions? You guys have that look. Some of you guys look like, okay, I got this, not a problem. Some of you guys look at me like, what the hell did you just say?
So you said, I know you said you could flip them, are there some?
No, there isn't. There isn't. Because that's the beauty of a conversion, right? I can flip it one way or the other, right? And it's going to mean the same thing, but I just want to make sure that I'm getting to where I want to get to.
What about, I guess there was, I know that there was this question. I know that it was the end result, so it was like, I flipped it. I don't know if big end is.
No. So the thing is that what because let's say, for instance, if I put this, right, and I put kilograms over pounds, would that give me what I want? No, because if we follow the dimension, let's just do it just for kicks and giggles, right? So if I said 30 kilograms over 1 kilogram, 2.2 pounds. Okay. Now, is that going to work out? All right. But I flipped it. Right? So the key is that we want to make sure that we flip it the right way, right? Because this gives me, what are the units now? So what is, if I have x times x, what would that be?
1.
X times x?
Oh, wait.
X times x.
It's too early.
Does that equal 2x?
I said 1.
This should be x squared, right? That's kind of like 2 times 2. What is 2 times 2? I know you're going to say 4, but we can also write it as 2 squared, right? Okay, so we got to brush up on that basic algebra. We know if we have x plus x, that equals 2x. Okay. Okay, so I need to find a nice little book that brushes up on algebra. That's what it sounds like, okay? Okay, so now if I have kilograms times kilograms, right? So then that's just going to give me kilograms squared. Okay, is that what I want?
No.
I wanted to get rid of kilograms. That doesn't allow me to get there, right? So immediately, if I'm using dimensional analysis, I know kilograms times kilograms, that's going to give me kilograms squared. That's not what I want. Right? I want to get rid of kilograms. Okay. Okay, so I'm gonna see if I can find a nice little link on like a little quick course or a YouTube on basic algebra, right? And I'm not trying to be silly, I stress basic, right? This is stuff that we've done before. You guys have all done this. You guys all passed that class, right? At some point, you passed that class. I hope you passed that class. Otherwise, you shouldn't be here right now, right? Now you may have just squeaked by, but you should have learned something, right? And really what it is that you need to brush it off. And the best way of brushing it off is to go where? Where do you find everything at? YouTube, right? So if I can't find it for you, you should be able to find it for yourself, right? Go to YouTube. And you want to find, it's just basic algebra, right? That's what it is. Okay? And you want to do it because otherwise you're gonna get burnt. And I don't want you guys to get burnt, you know. Usually that first exam is usually the eye opener. I don't want you guys to have that eye opener, right? I want that first exam to go, you know, easy.
It is an exam.
Oh, thank you. I'm glad you asked.
Because I'm sweating, but.
That was the $50 question.
Give me the
Actually,
money.
your very first exam will be next week, right?
When?
It's gonna be due by, no, it's gonna be due by Friday,
Oh.
right? So it's gonna be due by Friday at 11:59 p.m. I like to give you enough time, and sometimes I may be generous and let you go till Sunday, but I don't like to let you guys wait too long, because if you wait too long, then you guys get.
So why we can't take the class?
Part of the reason I don't want you to take the class is I need that class time for other things, right? I need to make sure that you guys get through everything that you need to get through for that TEAS test, right? So, yeah, I'm saving that little bit of time. So I'm putting it on you, and you guys are supposed to be doing at least 6 hours outside of class. a week. That's a very good question. The question was, can we use the handout? So you know that packet with the periodic table? This one? You can use this one, and you can use a calculator.
The whole package.
You can use the whole packet.
You're lying.
No one-page notes. Okay, well, I'm gonna give you, I'll give you 1 page of notes and I'll take this away.
No.
Okay, I figured you'd change your mind.
Yeah.
Okay, so the first exam will actually cover chapters, it covers 2, 3, 5, and part of 20. 2, 3, 5, and part of 20. You say 2, 3, 5, and part of 20. Okay? Oh, yeah. I'm like, let's go, right? And you'll notice I don't go in order, like everybody goes 1, 2.
As soon as you handed me the pack, I was like, where's 14? Where's 4? Where's
She's like, we're already at 20. This is the book, right? Yeah. I have this like, I think the book was designed for certain people. And if you go in a certain order, right? It's just like, it's no sense to me, right? And so I'm like, okay, so this is what we'll do. We'll try it like this. And then I'll see if that works. And then, so there's things that work. So I know that if I go from 2, 3, and 5, and usually go 2, 3, 5, 11. That's what I usually do. This time I'm going to do 2, 3, 5, and 20. Because they kind of all tie in together and it kind of makes sense. You know, it's like, oh, that's the next step, right? Okay, so there's another thing that I wanted to talk about before we move on. And then I'm going to give you guys a really quick quiz, 15 minutes quiz. You don't think you guys have like 15 minutes? 15-minute quiz, we'll give it to you now, and then I'll go see what they're doing over there. Okay. But I wanted to remind you guys. Yeah, there's going to be one dimensional analysis question, and there's going to be a couple concept questions. You know. I got to keep us all on our business. So,
This is our quiz right here, you put on the board.
no, this is not your quiz. This is another thing that I wanted to talk
Okay, sorry.
about. And then
Oh, yeah.
Is there quiz corrections?
No.
Oh, I think you're going off the board. Oh, you're okay.
Here, we'll shift this. I've got to remember to start.
Is that 4 or 9?
4.
Okay, so I wanted to make sure that you guys understood. This here is the chemical formula, right? Of the compound that we're talking about. That's the chemical formula. You can't change that, right? Once that's set, it doesn't change. Okay. There's a couple of you guys who actually on the quiz, you had broken it down, you know, and so you multiply this by this, this by that, you know, which is okay for you to do down here, but you don't want to do it with the chemical formula because this is the chemical formula. That means something entirely different, right? By you doing that, that means an entirely different chemical. How they're going to behave, it's going to be different. Okay, so you want to make sure that you're writing the chemical formula as is. Okay, so that's the thing I want you to stress. Now, you guys can go ahead and do this. Let's go ahead and make this. We'll make this part of your quiz. This will be your first question. Balance this chemical equation.
that work. So
Do we get it? Okay.
So it would be like.
But the four wouldn't count for that.
yeah.
Right here. There he goes. 12 and then the- What's it? Yeah, I'm right.
What is it? Nucleic energy?
What?
Nucleic energy.
Yeah. We're getting there. We just have to.
I got it.
Two and then times two. Okay.
I don't like so.
No, I did too.
Well, her brain is basically.
If you go by to. That is physical. You can get it back. You can get this.
Five people are done. I got 5 people. 5 people. You can come back and work on it.
Oh, let's go. Oh,
Okay, we'll go with, okay, we'll start with this 5 here. You guys can come back and work on it.
oh, you
Yeah. Just for yourself. And company track. You can have.
I have one. It's just not
Wait, yeah. Yeah. I don't even have my ID.
I think. Well, I mean, just use the pass. Yeah. Just use the pass from the list. Oh, I have to one. Where are you? It's good for your that one. Your energy. Wow. I don't know. You guys gotta do that. What'd you get for E? Oh. I just said it. Gracias.
You didn't do this
Yesterday.
Oh, no, I've been getting.
Your energy?
Yeah. I don't know how your grace is blue.
Oh, you put it at.
Without the. You're kidding. What are you waiting on it?
Because it's like all section.
I haven't seen much.
This is the last, the Mentos level.
What?
I started crying.
The longest one.
I have a 92. Well, just so like, I can see what I thought. I was up and I change. That's the only reason I did this. Yeah, but I got the 6. Go for 1. But 1 to 6.
I miss my people.
I think I look forward to it. I feel like I've been at work. Oh, I'm very. I don't want to the next week. I would.
But it was like the. They should have brought the one. It's actually the same one. I don't know. It's really good.
I thought you were like,
But mine doesn't look like this. I can see. But she's just doing it. You want to show her the picture with it all closer to the camera with the big lines? I love when you come to scratch.
I know, no, it's in the. Back version. So like. it's-
That one. That's my favorite picture. Oh, guys, what is that? Oh. Like, we go over. Oh, yeah.
Oh, she's trying to.
Oh.
Is it a brother's or your sister's? Just one, are you the brothers? Or I'll use everything we have to buy to pick up. Your cousin. Your cousin is it? Huh? Are you close to your cousin? Yeah, well, I grew up with them both, but that's both cousins. I grew up with them. Are they brothers? My oldest one, the oldest one, has to see happens because I was like, no, I know. Oh, it's a good thing. I know. It's like I'm not gonna. Yeah, I think we're doing burgers.
So the next slide should go. Get a lot of.
No one told me I was big fan.
That one is, yeah, they expire after the semester. Everybody wants it.
Mine doesn't.
Mine expires until I get out.
Oh,
no, I have a different one. That one's a 2023. Red. But like, my expiration is still like when I graduated.
Your face wasn't in.
Dude, the hell is it? All the ones that do that. We're gonna use. You know, like difference. I could get anything there. Like, they do a lot of work, now they tell us, like, okay, fix it there, and they like, into that. Well, yeah, it's like, oh yeah, you like fixing the selfish, and I'm like an apple for your fingers. Like, all the fiction shit. Yeah. Okay. That's what we finish it. Oh, do they have the course? Somebody was around there. First thing that's in Europe.
I hope you're ready to read it.
That's what music.
I was like,
My physiology. No, 2 weeks ago. Absolutely. Oh, that's so nice. Oh, I got to go to school. Mine was too. Those are just like no, dude. She got out at 4 o'clock. We had a Dutch roast. I made her stomach. Yeah, because we didn't eat and we drank the coffee. I think that I don't like. I don't like about. She's like, and they do. Oh, sweet. Sweet. Like cookies. I want.
No, you said. Oh.
I think I like myself. I would just have the proper check. I was gonna pick up. I'll still be okay. Oh my gosh, stop, they have it. Java sandwich. We're ready. We have an hour. They have a sandwich. It's so great. It's because I do too. We're on 46. Oh no. We'll put up oh, I love this one. Are you seeing what they go? So, yeah, the horse, yeah. Like that. Yeah, that's good too. You wouldn't be there. How much? I'll get it. I see one with ready. It's cute. Ready. We should do this. For me,
I've seen it.
I know, but I'm just saying something like that. I want one with ready. I wanted a giant on my back. I kind of wanted one on my leg. I wanted a snake, and then I'm like, put it on my leg.
Oh, that's what I did.
For that bigger thing. But like, the thing that I don't like is that. I said my no. I'm gonna give you this one. Yeah.
I have a question. So you have to separate.
I understand you have it right there.
Right?
You can do it like that, just right together and both together. What would you get? It's like a, it's a.
Why?
Yeah.
Oh, because it's on the same side.
A
Well, it's
vine,
'cause they're
a
both,
rose
it's-
vine?
they're both together on the
There's one where
reactive
someone has
products.
like a
Which is why I have to say separate them, is because they could, you could have some sort of reaction that breaks them apart. And it won't be the same.
Oh, it says.
It has to be PO4 on both sides for that one particular.
Yeah, I get it.
I don't want someone to go over here.
Wait, where'd you guys post it? I can't see it.
I don't know, so-
The quiz. Oh. I can see Alex.
Oh. I just took a picture.
That was like.
It's the part that you put it, I think it's like older, the one that you're not. We just don't want this.
Oh.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, like, you have to take it back.
So my PO is about 16.
Okay, so
The weight is in the-
How that would be for you, so that's all it is.
Your ID for that code?
Yeah, because.
Yeah.
Oh. Oh, it's yeah. It's not very good. Oh, you're gonna get just right there. That's what she wants. So you have to like. So first is like. So you have to do it. So. Yeah. I like to put it. I like to put it.
What?
We have to.
Oh, so it'll be like pleasure. It's not in on the thing?
No, I dropped it.
It's right there. It's right there.
Oh, shit. You're trying to get away from
I
it.
got this. Yeah, like, that's mine.
I had a green one. It wasn't good.
You got a pink one too? I'm scared now. You did?
Yeah.
Wow. I mean, I was bracing like if anything going on, it's just like
The whole.
the whole thing. I'll take the sheet though. I'm gonna send it to you guys. Yeah. Tell me where I left the whole lesson stone right here.
I think we can go back.
Yes, like clouds.
Yeah. You guys can go back to the
No,
That's it.
yes.
Turn your phone.
Do you guys remember when people were dying? On drugs and stuff like that, when we were-
I think we'll-
So let's say.
Oh.
Okay. Why is my face just? No. No more putting my hands on the bar.
You know, picture just look at you.
I always take my glasses off.
I did some I like this one because it's like just like all that. The off parts. Dude.
That hat was 25.
Oh, he's like, just in case.
We should go, or just like, staring at the cameras. Video is fine. What about yours? Oh, that's she doesn't. For how long was it? He left last Wednesday and then coming back this Wednesday, so for a week. And then I don't see him until like next Thursday. Actually, off. Yeah, because he always like. Yeah. Not that date, but like. Ooh, it's huge at East Street. The Venice area? And then the one in Slow is cute too. I'm trying to what? Why they always come on?
Next people. Where are our people?
Oh, I know. When they were still building.
Yeah.
I think they're like, no way. I said, yeah. I had just finished the dinosaur.
I like that.
Did you touch it?
Yeah, the Jurassic Park is like literally to be you walk in and there's like a giraffe dinosaur. And now because once you take a minute, I found it just.
Did you guys ever do the Excel? Did you guys do the Excel? The Excel? No, I was able to figure it out, but.
You never showed us either, right?
No, Dr. Henry, I think, is supposed to go over downstairs.
We ain't gonna be able to do 2 hours today.
We just have to remind him.
Oh, if he forgets, it's okay. He does like 20 things at once. Huh?
Yeah, he does.
So this how
We
his
just have to
whole,
remind him if he needs something.
this how his whole class gonna be. That's like this.
For what?
Like the whole time, the whole
Janet.
everybody is gonna be like-
Janet,
Pretty much, yeah.
are you filling this out? Did you do this?
What is that?
El papel ese,
Yeah.
el paquete.
As far as what?
¿No lo has
As
hecho?
far as just
Yeah.
remembering.
El paquete, gracias. I barely got to the first question
But you'll be
and
fine.
I gave up.
You take it or take it out, or you have like a history with it, so just refresh.
I don't know.
Yeah, we're doing that one and then the other practice brings you.
What is he gonna give us for homework?
Okay.
Huh?
Just those 4 assignments.
I don't think he finished the last chapter, going over.
I know.
That's all he got. You're just working it. Yeah, awesome. So you don't hold on.
You ever done give us a lot of work, huh?
Yeah, I'm always good behind it. I like to trust you.
I know that.
The one that said.
Yeah, 7 days ago. That was like 24 hours.
I
No, I finished.
The last time I started, I was like, okay, I have 7 days.
24 hours, 6 weeks.
Oh
I think I'm gonna do one.
I don't want to.
I just started it a long time ago.
I have like the 3 years. Green, ready.
I looked at it and I was like, nope. It's coming away. Not gonna do it today. It's a challenge for tomorrow.
It's due in 2 days actually. Not tomorrow.
I swore last night it
2
said
days.
2 days.
It's 2 days.
Everything has a refresh.
Oh, I don't even think it has.
It's due tomorrow.
Stop, so I have to refresh.
And the one after that is due in 2 days.
Yeah.
And then there's one
That's
coming
what it
tomorrow,
is.
and the other one's so they're both. They're like due
I
this
just, wait, no, Wednesday, Wednesday, Friday. Due in 2 days.
Wednesday and Friday.
Oh, because it's today and tomorrow.
I love to be nice. The other one, I really waited until the last day. Literally, probably like 4 hours.
We already started June.
And I was like, oh my god, and then I didn't realize that there's so many chemical balance equations. And I was like, I'm not gonna get this done. I literally did it like the first day.
Hotels.
I'm a procrastinator. It's a problem. It's a problem.
You report as the uncertainty of the scheme. I think it's the top one. Oh, shoot. Let's have a. Purpose. No, but I'm saying. What about it? Did you do? No, he is white. His grandma is so after 45. Yeah. It's gonna be this one. It was down to it.
Oh, yes.
Yes, that one.
But it's
No, no.
like a privacy one.
Already on that. Oh. No. No. No, Kelvin is temperature. Try me.
Can you tell them?
Oh.
Will you give you a time?
Yeah, but does it say how many times you get?
Okay, ready for the quiz, right? Everybody taking a picture, let me make a spot, ready to spin it.
No.
You guys have discussed it between yourselves, you feel comfortable about your answers?
No.
No, what do you might know? Okay, so no to which part? Let's start that way.
The first one.
Thank you.
Papa?
Yes, sir.
I've always wanted. Oh, like, I'm getting. No. I'm good.
Me?
No, my English teacher. No, my pronounce it out, right? This is an essay. So, I don't know. How about some? Well, I already said this, so sorry, I don't.
So you see, you have it on.
Oh, yeah.
But I was saying, okay. I was right, the numbers of what I thought. Like, yeah. I like to lie.
It's quick, huh? And I learned about it,
Huh?
I did too. Oh, they're doing that cross. So, yeah.
Everybody was able to find it and upload it?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about it. So you guys want to help me through this? Where am I going to start? Sodium, phosphorus, this. So reaction side of the equation, how many sodiums? How many phosphorus? Oxygens? 4 here. And I have 4 times 2. 12. Bismuth. Sulfur. Okay. On the product side, how many sodiums? 2. How many phosphorus? 4. How many oxygens? So I have 4 times 4, which is 16, plus 4, that's 20. Bismuth. Sulfur. Okay, Everybody see that so far? Anybody not see? Any questions? Everybody saw where all the oxygens came from, all the sulfurs?
That it's, yeah, first.
Now you do. Okay, so. Where am I gonna start? Is 3 and 2 same, balanced? No, so. Where am I gonna start? Where should I start? Where should I start? Start on the right side, do it where? 6 next to the sodium. Over here. 6 plus 6.
Oh, yeah, it was in. I might have a little different.
So, but your concept of the common denominator, 6 is a common denominator between 3 and 2, right? So then you said if we started here, that worked out for us. It could, but would that give us our 4?
No, yeah, that's fine.
Okay, so maybe it would be smarter to start off with something that's kind of easy, right? We know that we have 1 here, right? 1 phosphorus. So maybe it'd be smart to start off with that 4. Right?
Yeah.
So let's go ahead and put 4 here. Right, because then that definitely takes care of that. Yeah. Right, this is a little more complicated. So that gives me a total of what? 12. Okay,
And I could put 6.
so 4p, how many oxygens? So we have 4 plus 8. 4 times 4, which is 16, plus 8.
24.
Okay, 24. Okay, so, and then about this, what can I do to that? What can I do to that to make it?
Add a 6 on the NA of the product side.
Oh, put a 6 here?
Yeah.
So now we're good on the 8, so that gives us 12.
Yeah.
Okay. And then how many oxygens over here?
Oh, oxygen.
How many?
24.
4 times 4
28.
plus 6 times 4. 6 times 4 is what?
24.
You guys gotta talk up, I can't hear you.
Oh.
Going deaf in one ear and can't hear out the other. So you guys
24.
gotta talk up. 24. Okay, so 24. So 24 plus 16. Oh, awesome. Okay. Are we good?
Add
Yeah, pretty much.
a 3 on the BI of the reactants.
Is that 3 here?
Yeah.
Okay, it's got a 3 here. So that gives us 3 here. How many sulfurs?
It would be 6. Oh, Dr. Henry, you forgot the 6 on the
Other side.
on the product side of sulfur.
Oh, I forgot 6.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So now we have 2, 6. Okay. Is that balanced? Oh, we gotta look at the
Your
oxygen.
oxygen, yeah,
So the
the
oxygen-
oxygen. So
So we have 4 times 2 times 3. That's 8. 8 times 3,
24.
24. 24 plus 16.
40.
I don't have the numbers right.
Well, that was a big beast, wasn't it? Okay, so our coefficients are 4, 3, 1, 6. Works out?
Yeah.
Okay. Determine if it is a physical or chemical reaction. Air burning.
Chemical.
Melting gold into earrings.
Physical.
Popcorn popping.
Chemical.
Anyone want to disagree with that? Yes, kind of. Some of you guys looked at me like, waiting for him to say something. Confident. I won't argue with you. Distilling whiskey.
Physical.
Fermenting alcohol from cornmeal. Okay. So what is the exception to the law of conservation of mass and energy? Okay, everybody got 100%, right? All I have to do is just. Yeah? No? Close? What did you struggle with?
Well, first off, the chemical balance, I'm not very good on that.
Okay. So what is it that you struggle with then? I'm just curious.
I think I put too much on it. Like,
Are you saying you overthink it? Okay. So do you do the writing down the elements and then counting them up to make sure? The thing that I used to mess up on is if there were 2 places where oxygen was at, I'd only count that one. I forget to count the second one. That's the mistake that I did.
Like, I get to the point where I write down the elements and I write down how many there is, but then I forget, like, oh, I can still add this, like, working times 4 times.
But is it getting better? Are you writing down like you're going through the steps when we go through the steps, right?
Yeah.
And you're gonna CBTA or CB later, right? Anyone else? I mean, this is, hey, truth, power, right? So here's an opportunity for us to talk about what we're messing up on, kind of fix that, right? Anybody else having trouble with this? You agree with me? 100%? Okay, so what is it, again, that you're having? So the key is not to overthink it, right? Simple, it's just numbers, right? And it's always going to be multiplying those numbers, right?
Anxiety when I see numbers.
Don't get anxiety, right? Think about money, right? Does money give you anxiety? Money don't give me anxiety if I'm getting it, right? If I'm spending it or it's like it's coming out of my budget, then I get anxiety then, right? So, you know, don't overthink it. Again, it's going to be simple math. Just try to keep track of it. Okay, so as soon as you start overthinking or you get overwhelmed, guess what happens? What was that?
I mess up.
You mess up or you shut down. Those are the 2 things that happen, or you quit, right? So you don't want to get overwhelmed. Just take a minute. Sometimes I just sit there and I'm like, okay, give myself a minute, you know, and then just, okay.
I do all those 3 things that you said. I shut down and I quit.
Well, we want to stop that, right? We don't want to shut down. We don't want to quit, you know? We want to make sure that we get through the entire thing. Okay. Anyone else?
I put that S and the O together.
The S and the O together?
I don't know.
Yeah. But, okay, so I'm going to show you something, right? I'm going to show you guys a little trick. You knew I was going to show you, huh? You're excited about it, huh? So I'm going to show you a little trick, okay? So, you guys know what swingers are? Anybody know what a swinger is?
Yeah.
Anybody? Okay, you want to give me a definition of a swinger? Well, that's not someone, that's a whore. That's different. Okay. What was that? What did you say? Open relationships? Okay.
Like, don't they like to bring other people? Like, go to the club and like, oh, you wanna come with us?
Okay, it's couples that switch with other couples. They share each other. Okay, couples that can share each other. Yeah, okay, we'll use those definitions. Okay, so if we look at this reaction, right? If you kind of pay attention to the parties that are involved, right? Don't get freaked out about all the different letters and stuff like that. Things are moving in groups, right? They're moving like couples, right? So you have this couple that's together. So it's this guy and this. This guy's moving as a unit, right? Okay. Wow. Okay. Now what happens is that this guy is going to hook up with this guy. Okay. So they're essentially switching partners. Okay. And then that's the same thing that happens with the sodium and the sulfate, right? So if you look, sulfate stays together. It stays as a unit. So this is called, I like to call it a swinging reaction, right? Because everybody's switching partners, right? But it's also called the double replacement reaction. That's its real name, double replacement or double displacement reaction. Now these reactions are really cool, right? The cool thing about them is that since they're moving as a unit, I can kind of write them down as a unit rather than writing them down individually. Okay, so do you mind if I erase this for a second? Rearrange a little bit. I have a bad habit of carrying things across the room. Okay, so the phosphate, this PO4, that's called phosphate. Okay, this guy, right? Over here we have one, okay, of those. Over here we have how many? 4. Okay, so I can keep it as a unit because it's moving as a unit. It makes it a lot easier to keep track of those numbers. We have bismuth, one over here, here, and then we have sulfate, SO4, right? SO4 is moving as a unit. How many do we have over here?
2.
2. And then how many do I have over here? 1. Okay, so that makes it a lot easier for us to sit there and work with those numbers, right? Because now I can look at this. Okay, this is real simple, right? Okay, so I have 4 phosphates over here. So what do I need to put in front of here to make that work? There's 1 over here, there's 4 over here. I need to put a 4 in front of that phosphate, right? So I'll put a 4 in front of the sodium phosphate. So then that gives me my piece. This. 2 over here. Okay, so if I look at my bismuth, over here, it has 1. Over here, it has 3. So what can I do to that bismuth to sit there and make it balance on both sides? Put a 3. Okay, so if I put a 3, that gives me bismuth, so that balances out both sides. How many sulfates do I have? 6. I have a total of 6. So 3 times 2. Okay, so then over here, what am I going to use to balance it out? 6. Okay, so how much time did that save us? All right, we didn't have to worry about all of those little oxygens running around because they were working as a unit. Does that help out a little bit?
Yes.
Okay. So if we see things that are moving as a block, moving together, then we can sit there and kind of group them together, make it easier for us.
That's only for this type of reaction. So if it's reduction, so let's say if you have PO4 on one side and PO3 on the other side, it won't work the same way.
They have to be exactly the same unit that's moving. Okay, questions, concerns, cash, Kool-Aid? Okay, good. Okay, so let's talk and finish this chapter that we're working on a little bit too, right? And then we're going to do our lab. We're probably going to get one of the labs done today. We'll get the other lab done tomorrow. Okay.
Or you
So-
gonna review the Google.
Yes, I am. Yeah. Thank you for reminding me. Relax, relax. Okay. Let's see. You guys want to start with that? You guys want to know how to manipulate your data? And your Google Docs?
Yes.
Or you already got it done, yeah. You don't need to do it. Okay, I like that. I got one person that got it done. Everybody else is like, maybe. Okay. so let's pull it up. The library is closed today. You know what's going on? Oh. Okay.
It's not an open end.
Yeah, it's gonna be down for at least a week, so. So next week. Maybe.
I don't think they have the staff to keep it open.
Yeah, well, if everybody's quarantining, they don't have it staff. They don't fix that. For a tutorial, excellent, we were just talking about that.
Yeah.
So you tutor till what time? Till 2 o'clock, perfect. So Mesa is actually gonna be open, so you guys can actually go to the Mesa building. And Julia is actually gonna be at the Mesa building. I've already talked to Zach about it. Okay, so you guys take a look at your data. Everybody has access to the Google Sheets. The first thing that I'm going to have you do is I want you to change or make a copy of the Google Sheet so you don't affect the original version. Okay. So I'll show you guys how to go through that process. Let me share the screen. Okay, so if you guys go to file, this is make a copy. So I can make a copy. My initials. Summer, spring. So I'm not going to share it with anybody. So I have my own copy of the data. So then if there's any changes that are made, it's only made on my copy, no one else's copy. Everybody got that, right? So again, you're going to go under file. It says under file, click make a copy. Everybody has a laptop? Should have asked that first. You guys are good. Excellent. Okay. Okay, so now I have a couple of questions about data. I don't know where to start. So reggaeton, we have 1,386 inches. How many feet is that? Do that math, right? So we'll say this value equal, we know that if we divide it by 12, that is 115 feet. Reggaeton, where are you guys at? 115 feet. That is pretty damn high. Yeah, if that's what you really got, well, I'm doubting it, but if that's what you really got, that's what you really got. But
That's what we wrote down, but
what was that?
it's what we wrote down.
So was the Pepsi, was it higher than the building?
Yeah, one of
Yeah,
them
it
did.
was.
What if we did, but was that the Diet Pepsi or was that the Pepsi?
Okay.
Was it Diet? Okay, so let's see what your diet is, right?
157 about
You said 157. Now, my question is, was it centimeters or was it inches? Because 1 inch is equal to 2.4 or 2.54 centimeters. Right?
So, because the way we did it, we just measured one of the bricks and then we multiplied it by how many there was on there.
Okay, how many bricks there were?
Yeah,
Okay. And so what
Um,
did you measure your bricks in inches or in feet? Are you sure it's feet?
it was.
It's like 3.5.
The brick that's this big is 3.5 feet? 3.5 inches.
Oh, yeah,
3.5 inches.
okay,
Okay.
Oh,
okay.
I think it's we did.
Okay, but you have the number of bricks there were, right? Okay.
Yeah,
Okay, so we need to kind of fix that, right? So
Yeah.
we need to figure out that value. So that is the one that is the most, it stands out the most. It's at 115.
yeah, it would have been one.
If we didn't.
Okay. So 115 inches.
Oh, it would have been 3.5
Okay.
inches, and then that was just for the regular Pepsi, and then for the diet, it would have been 157.5 inches. And then for the sparkling water would have been 24.5 inches.
So it's, Diet Pepsi was 157.
Yeah, 157.5.
Okay. And then you said sparkling water would have been
24.5.
24.5. Okay, so that looks a lot better, right?
Yeah, I think we thought it was.
Okay. Okay, good, good. Okay. Okay, so everybody got that? Everybody got the correction? Okay. Copy it again.
It's still gonna be on. But then we could do it. Yeah, we do. Like, you're gonna still stand it. On your paper drive.
Go for ours. 157.
So we have to make our own individual.
Yeah, somebody here did all the hard work and everything. I had tabs underneath here. Who did all the work for us?
Me?
And then the
That was
one
you?
birthday,
Man, I'm
24.
like, man, they did all the hard work for us. Thank you guys. You guys are so nice. Okay, so the first thing that we want to do, so you guys notice that everything is in numerical values. So it's not a complete quantity, but we are taking it as a quantity because we have the units at top, right? So if you guys take a look at the raw data, everybody see the raw data? So talking with the raw data, you can't follow. Are you having trouble with your internet? Both you guys? Okay. Is it going in and out or is it? And you guys using?
Your dad is already computed with same computer. Oh, that they do. Que nos deu um descanso.
So let's try it. There's
Tu
two
pregunta?
different-
Tu? Dad.
try this. And then what you're gonna do, you're gonna use your student name, and then for your login, and then your password. Your password. Say, did I say?
What you gonna say?
Yeah. What you thought I was gonna do?
I said-
No, you said.
Yeah, so I'm staying until,
I just read your student, your password.
You don't have time.
Yes.
You don't have to. Let's say tomorrow.
I think I want to get help with the graph. Can I go inside? Oh, yeah, tomorrow. Saben cuánto.
But it's not on you, but they should.
I ain't going to.
No, I have the. We have to change it. So. After I finish, you can do the rest. So what did it do option? So what's it total?
No, it's a better car.
We said.
No, absolutely. I mean, they're gonna, if the car is.
Oh,
Yes, we need to get it, yes.
Did you get the data?
It's not old.
Yep.
I knew it was an older car.
Yeah, the AirDrop one?
The value of.
I don't know if my AirDrop's on. I'm not using it.
Go to your
If it's solar, then you
Bluetooth.
How much is it to fix it?
Like this. Yeah, then your Bluetooth, and then you're gonna hold it again. Oh no. I like
I
AirDrop.
turn out AirDrop everyone, right?
Yeah.
There's a link. Oh, this is what happened.
Oh, yeah.
I love
Please give me a login.
But I can't stand for too long. I was so like.
You have no
Should be a horse, right?
No,
Was it blue shirt?
no, it's an older chick. I guess this is like. Yeah, I think so. But he's like a. Well, I'm like. So go to the lab, go down. I'll go to.
What's your AirDrop? Oh. This, would it be my iPhone? Oh, I understand.
And then you're gonna play five times.
I was like, I don't know how it works. I'm not really good with technology.
And then you want to go down. You're gonna see it, let's go back up. You're gonna see. You should already upload it. All you have to wait.
So we're gonna keep that like their stuff on too, like the group on ours and also. You have to create a charter.
Yeah. Then. So you're not gonna also. I would have to go all around. So they meet up at school. Yeah. They meet up at school. Wait for me.
I think
So. We don't own it. They don't own it. Red house. But yeah. Because if I would have to go, I would have to go all. Yeah. I'm just wasting money.
So what we'll do is, it's gonna be recorded, so you'll be able to look at it. And it's already been recorded once, so there are gonna be some
Getting bored.
modifications, because your data is a little bit different.
It's because like my.
So, same thing. We'll figure it out. Okay. Okay, so. Right. Thanks to whoever did all the hard work for us. I appreciate it. Then you also deleted all the stuff that you had done earlier. What's up with that? Okay, so everybody has everything saved, right? Okay, so the first thing that we want to do is we want to try to convert, and I'm going to kind of clear this out because somebody has done the work, but I want to go through the process because somebody did it the hard way, really hard. And I'm going to show you the easy way. Okay. So, but I'm going to take advantage of them putting the information up here up top. Right? So the way that you would copy the data from one field to the other field, right? And that's what we want to do. There's a couple of ways of doing it. Everybody knows the simple way of selecting and copy, right? Everybody knows that. So you would just highlight. Okay. Now, if you hit Control or the CTRL, sorry. Okay. And then you highlight, so we're going to scroll a little bit to find our next value in inches. So that's the dye height. And then we want the sparkling water height. Okay. Now, if I hit Control, after I have all of them selected, hit Control C for copy. Okay. Right. Just happened for some reason. I ended up copying the entire thing. Okay, everybody got that? Okay, so I'm going to be a bum here, and then I'm going to take your labels. have here. Thank you for whoever did this. So I'm gonna go ahead and hit Control, and I'm just gonna highlight each of the different labels that are in meters, because I want it in meters. Okay. And I'm gonna scroll down here, and then I'm gonna hit Control B for paste.
So we put all the inches together, all the meters together.
Okay, so I have my inches together and I have my meters together. Okay, now I want the program to do the work for me, do the calculations, so I don't make mistakes, right? Because if I have to plug all those in, it's gonna be crazy, and I don't want to do that. I'm lazy. Okay, so I'm gonna set it up so that it does all of the work for me. Since I have it already in Pepsi height over here in inches, I want to convert that to meters. So what is the conversion factor for inches to meters? Does anybody remember? Okay, so we're going to talk about this. Right, I think right where everybody can see the inches. So we know that for every 1 inch, it's going to be what? 2.54 centimeters. So I know for every 1 inch equals 2.54 centimeters. Okay. So, and then I also know that for every 100 centimeters, it's going to be 1 meter. Now I need to translate that into database, right? The way I do that is by typing in, I'm going to type in equal, and then we're going to get the value for our inches, right? So in this case, the very first one is going to be in this very first box here. I'm going to type in equal. I'm going to select the value in inches. So now I have it in inches. Okay, so now I want to get rid of inches and to convert it into centimeters. So then I'm going to multiply that by 2.54. So then I'm going to hit star. You guys, can you guys see that? Can you guys see that? Or is that height? See if I can- Okay, and then I want to type in 2.54. Okay, so then that means I'm multiplying it by 2.54.
Is that 3 or 4?
It's the value. That's the value that it's going to have. It's actually doing the calculation for it. Okay. Okay, so then I also need to change it from centimeters to meters, right? So that means I need to divide it by 100. I need to divide it by 100 because for every 1 meter, it's going to be 100 centimeters, right? So I'm going to divide that by 100. Okay. So turn. You have that look.
Yeah, it's okay, I'll figure it out.
Let me write it on the board so that you guys understand the calculations until you be able to type it.
I don't think I think it's just how you could like, move everything to its own section, and then that part, it's not the calculation. It's the first part, right?
Okay, so let's work on the calculation and then the movement, I'll show you how to do the movement. Okay. Can I reach this? Everybody got this down? Okay, so the very first value that we have is 120, right? So we have 120 inches, right? So we have 120 inches. We're changing from inches into centimeters. So we know for every 1 inch, that's going to be 2.54 centimeters. But we don't want centimeters, we want meters, right? We know that for every 100 centimeters, that's going to equal. Okay, so if we look at our equation, regardless of what we put in here, as long as it's in inches, right? We're just going to multiply that by 2.54 and then divide it by 100. So the way that you write that in database, right, is you put the equal sign, meaning that you're going to do a calculation and you're expecting a numerical value. We put a location, in this case it was F, B, sorry, B 20, sorry, B 30, right? That was what was that?
Yeah.
So B 30. So then that tells me the location of that value, right? I'm multiplying, so star for multiplication, 2.54. Units, and then we're also dividing. Dividing by. And then that's going to give me my value. Okay. Now, once I have my very first value, there's a couple of ways that I can do it. It says in the corner, it'll say autofill, right? Autofill will fill everything in there underneath it and do exactly the same thing that I just done. Okay, that's one way of doing it. The other way of doing it is by selecting the corner. You see where that plus goes over it? You hold that and drag it down. And so that just copies it, right? It copies the formula. Okay, it does the same thing as the autofill does. Okay, now I just did, for that one calculation, I did 5 calculations just by autofill. Okay, now I know I'm using the same equation for the next columns, right? So then I can sit there and take this guy in the corner and then just drag it. Okay, and then I've done all my calculations. Just by doing one, right? Now, this, you guys, it's incredible. This is like the most incredible thing because you're going to be working with patients' data, right? And if you organize your patients' data in a nice little system, you can sit there and have all the patients on your floor taken care of in 15 minutes, where it would take you normally 3 hours to sit there and do it, right? So, questions? Piece of cake so far? Okay. So the next part is, I want to show this data, right? Somebody already get the graph? What's that? That's the old graph. You want the new graph now? Okay, so I'm going to highlight the ones that I'm interested in doing. And so if you go to insert, and they don't call it graphs, they call it chart, right? So if you go insert chart, this is going to pop up. Okay, so then we have our option of the type of chart that we want, right? What makes the most sense is to use a column chart. In other words, vertical line, right? We can also use them horizontally if you think that's going to be, more power, Okay, and it pretty much, it sets it up itself. Now, sometimes it screws up, and sometimes you got to get into the nitty gritty to fix everything because it doesn't quite work out the way it's supposed to. And it does do that. It tweaks every once in a while, and so you need to be able to figure it out, right? But right now, if you guys look at the chart, the chart look good. It's a beautiful chart. It's already labeled and everything, right? Pretty much. You may want to mess with it a little bit because that label there, the Pepsi height, meters and all that stuff. It's great. It tells me what it is, but it'd be nicer if I had a nice system. Okay, so right now that's exactly the type of chart I want. So I'm going to go ahead and select that. And then these are all of your options, right? All of the different options that you have. Okay. And so you want to try to find the best type of chart or the best type of graph that represents the data. If you're trying to show that something is growing, you're probably going to use scatter plot, right? If you're trying to just do comparisons, direct comparisons, this is perfect. Okay. Okay, so this is what's suggested for us. Let's go ahead with what's suggested. Okay. So in this case, we don't want stacking, right? That would be stacking. We want them to be independent, so you guys can clearly see them. Okay, you guys see that so far? Okay, now this tells me the range where everything is at. It tells me how the range is being organized. It's being organized horizontally, right? So that means that right here I have everything listed on this axis. So these are the groups. Is that data correct for each of your groups so far?
Yeah.
And it tells you your axes. These are your series, right? Now, if your series were screwed up, this is where you would make that correction. And so you would just tell them where that series is at. So you just click on it, and then you highlight the part that you want to make changes to. And then you go here where the boxes are at. And then there you just select the range that you want. But in this case, your data is already perfect. You don't have anything to worry about. Questions? Okay, so that takes care of that first part. So that's your setup. So we want to customize it. Because you're making it for your professor here. It's a little bit more anal. So I want you guys to sit there and label your tables, right? And that Pepsi height, okay, that's not a good title. So what would be a good title? Mentos height. So say Mentos. So Mentos experiment. Comparison. Difficult with it right now. Okay, so then it gives me that nice little title that I want. Okay, so my axes. So what is my vertical axis? Horizontal axis, as I said, are groups, right? So which is already labeled for us. So we just go groups. And then our vertical axis. What is the vertical axis? What does that represent? It's what? What's the vertical part? This part here. What is the 0, the 2, the 4, the 6?
The height.
It's the height. Okay. So it's height meters. Okay. Okay, here I can change my line color. I could change, if I didn't like those colors, I could change my colors and everything. If I wanted to put error bars associated with the data or trend lines associated with the data, I would add that down here. So trend line are basically lines that are drawn for you to try to show you what the data is looking like. Right? Here we would want to use trend lines. But if we had error bars, if we weren't sure about that data, we could put error bars. Right? Error associated with it. So here we're going to say, oh, it was roughly 2%, right? 2% error. So then my error bars would be much smaller. Okay, are you guys with me so far? This is where your legend is at. Right now, it's going to auto position. We can also change where it's located at. Right. Left. Okay. And what I recommend you do, again, this is the reason why I said make your own copy. So then that way you can sit there and tweak it the way you want to tweak it. And so if you're messing it up, you're not messing everybody else's data up. Okay. Okay. So piece of cake so far. So we want to do the same thing with our temperature. So we're going to take a look at the temperature change, right? Because we're interested in the temperature change. So we want the initial versus the final. Was there a change associated? Okay. So then we want to collect all of the temperature. You guys, how we go about doing that? You guys remember? So let's go ahead and label this one temperature. Temperature change. So I'm going to go to my original data. I'm going to select my group. I'm going to hit the control key. As I'm holding the control key, I can actually still move. And I'm looking at temperature, right? Temperature at the start and temperature at the end. That's going to represent my temperature change. Right? So I'm going to select that by hitting the control key at the same time as I highlight.
How did you add temperature change on there?
How did I write temperature change on that? I just double clicked and then it'll highlight it and then you just have the temperature change. Okay, so then I'm going to move to the one that says temperature change. I hit Control C. So let me go back to the original, the data. Here. I hit Control C. That allows me to copy those values. And then I'll go to temperature change and then I hit Control V, which allows me to paste it. So then I copied all of those values and I'm pasting them right there. Okay. Good so far? Are you getting it down? Are we recording?
Yeah.
Okay, so after I hit Control V, I have my data. Everybody's good so far? Mm-mm. I have trouble too. Anybody who's having trouble?
It's just yours looks like it's all in order.
Here, let me see if I can help. Mine is all in order. Let's see this. That's the one of the original. So then this one is
So you always know each other.
Yeah. And you're highlighting. Anywhere else? Yep, change. Now you do it.
No, I got it.
No, I'm gonna delete it. You gotta do it. Okay? So now you
I
do
have
it.
a question. It's not allowing me to copy. To like make a copy.
Okay.
So I have to sign it.
It's probably because you're not logged into your Canvas shell. I mean, not your pen shell. that's-
Oh.
So if you're not logged into Google, it's not gonna let you. You've got to log in. You got it?
She just did it wrong by hand.
Right click.
Okay, so we want the change in temperature, so that means we want the temperature at the end minus the temperature at the beginning. Okay,
Oh, yeah.
okay, so how would I set up my equation so that I'm getting the temperature at the end minus the temperature at the beginning?
Add 273, right? 0.5?
What was that? So, well, we want it in Kelvin, you're right, we're gonna want it in Kelvin, but the change in Kelvin and the change in Celsius are gonna be exactly the same, that difference, right? Whether I add 270, degrees Kelvin, because we want scientific forms, but we know if I subtract those values, it's not gonna make a difference whether it's Celsius or if it's gonna be Kelvin. It will make a difference if it's Fahrenheit. Okay, so how would I take the change in temperature? So then I'm gonna go ahead and label this. It's gonna be Pepsi. Change Pepsi to diet. And I always hate it when my columns run into each other. So one way of keeping that from happening or to adjust for that is to highlight all the columns at the very top. And then go between two of them. This, where it's that line, double click. And so it'll adjust your columns based upon what's there. So then that way it fits everything in the column. Yep. Okay. So now we want the difference in temperature, right? So we want the end temperature and the beginning. Okay. So we're going to do exactly the same thing that we did before. We're going to use the equal sign to say that we're going to do a equation. And so we're going to just subtract the beginning temperature, the end temperature from the beginning temperature. So the end temperature for Pepsi is located in C. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and hit C, and then I'm going to hit minus, and then I'm going to go start temperature. Okay, and then I'm going to hit return. Okay, now I'm going to be lazy this time, and I'm just going to hit autofill. So then it autofills all of the one for Pepsi. So now I can do the same thing for the diet Pepsi. You guys how does it look? Good. You're good?
Yeah.
See if I
I'm
can
just
make it.
thinking like.
How did you,
Show some more.
how did you
Show you
space
another
it
time.
again?
What was that?
How did you space it out again?
If you highlight the very top, I'll show you real quick. So what you're gonna do is select the very top, all of the columns, right? All the columns that you're interested in highlighting. Okay. And then you just go between any two of them, and you get that line going both directions, and you double click. And then it'll adjust it based upon the size. Okay. Are you guys good? Okay, so now, again, when we're writing the equation, it's going to be equal. And then we're going to take the n, which here is shown in the orange or the yellow, minus, so this guy, minus this guy. Okay, and then you just hit enter. Turn. So we needed the same thing for the diet. That's going to be equal. And then we want the end for the diet minus the start for the diet. Hit return. Okay. We want it to autofill, so we can just select autofill. So it'll fill out everything in for us. Same thing for the sparkling. So equal n minus start. Okay. So that's the change in temperature. Now, if we take a look at the change in temperature, did anything go up in temperature? Two went up in temperature. Right? Okay. And then anything go down in temperature? Two go down in temperature. Interesting. But is there any rhyme or reason to it? Is there anything consistent? A lot of people, there's no change, right? Yeah, 0, 0, 0, 0, or if there's change, it's very little, right? Like 1. So would you say temperature definitely had an impact on this experiment based upon this data? Yeah, if we really played like with the extremes of temperature, cold versus hot versus, does that affect the height? Right now, we notice that there's no real consistency about the temperature change compared to what we saw with the height. Back to the height. Was there clear differences between the heights? What can we say consistently was the case? Diet Pepsi was the highest, right? And then what can we say was also consistent? Pepsi was next, and then sparkling water was like 80 feet, right? So now based upon this, would you just say the only thing that's affecting it, because we know that the sodas were mixtures of solution, right? So we know that sparkling water is just carbon dioxide and flavored water, right? So nothing else is added, just that artificial flavor, that little flavoring of orange if it's orange, I remember or if it was original, right? So it's just carbonation. So was it just carbonation? Was carbonation enough to get that height? Obviously not. Okay. So, and we also know that there's a distinction between Pepsi and the Diet Pepsi. Right? So we know that, there's all the things that make it that Pepsi flavor, so that artificial flavor that makes Pepsi, right? And then there's also the acid and stuff like that. That's in both of those solutions. But there's a distinction between the two, right? So what is it that's causing one to go higher than the other? You guys think about that? Yeah. So artificial sweeteners. Okay. So there's something with that aspartame that caused that kick in that boost, right? Where the sugar didn't have that effect. Or was it just the carbonation? Carbonation was the ignition, but what gives it the kick is something else, right? So you guys are seeing how this works? Are you guys feeling comfortable with manipulating the data? You are? Yeah. Okay. What was that? So the other thing that we wanted to get is the flow rate, right? Flow rate is a combination of volume divided by the time, the change of time, right? Okay, so can we get the volume and the time all located on a single sheet? Okay, so let's go ahead and the thing is that the flow rate is the volume, so it's the volume that's going to be lost, right? Not the volume that's collecting, because the volume that we're collecting is the volume. What? What did we collect? What was the value of collected? Remaining volume. So a 2-liter bottle of soda starts off with how much soda? 2 liters. And then if you lose, well, if you only have 600 liters or 600 milliliters remaining, how much did you actually lose? 1,400 milliliters. That's correct. Okay. So we want to make sure that we're using that value for our flow rate, right? Because it's the flow of the stuff that's leaving. Okay. Okay, so our flow rate. So you guys are going to collect that data. You guys feel comfortable collecting that data without having to enter it independently?
No, yeah, yeah, you have a choice.
Yeah, you don't have a choice. That's right. Yeah. Okay, so we want the volume that's leaving the bottle. Right, so then I know that we have to start off with 2 mils, and we subtract the volume that was remaining. Right? Everybody got that? Any questions? You got that? Ready?
So will you subtract? Would you subtract what you ended up with from what we started with?
You're gonna, yes. So you start off with what you started with minus what you ended up with. Okay. Any questions?
The flow rate is
Yeah. Flow rate is the initial. The initial start off with minus what we ended up with. Exactly. Right.
Because at first I told them like finalize initial amount, like wait.
Yeah. You want a positive number. But the temperature changes.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so any questions?
What was the equation for the temperature one?
It's just the final minus.
Final minus, oh,
You want to include the first, you want to show the individual. Then it shows the and so, like when we're making, so have any of you guys read the article about racial norming? Okay. Can you do me a favor and briefly tell me what it was about?
It was about the requirements for differentiating like the needs or the requirements to be tested like in a way that would require you to get treatment or reimbursement to get treatment. Like if you tested less for a pot like for a specific test and you weren't positive for that sickness, or you weren't available, they would, based on your race, it would differentiate where you would start on the numbers.
Okay, so let me kind of elaborate on it. Anybody want to add on to it? Anybody else really? Okay, so racial norming is basically using the fact that you're a certain race to sit there and make clinical decisions about you without doing actual tests, right? So what happened in the past is that like various things such as like kidney diseases and things to that extent, they would actually have a range. and they do all of these diagnostic tests. But the problem is that they have not done enough diagnostic tests in certain populations, because certain populations don't go to doctors as frequently, or they don't, or when they go to the doctors, they're not seen as having these diseases, or they're not paid attention to. And so they make guidelines based upon, oh, so you're African American, you have, your race has a tendency of having more sodium. So rather than looking at your numbers, they're making an assumption about what you've done based upon what you've done, right? And so this has been done consistently throughout the medical industry. It's not only done with African Americans, it's done with Latinos and stuff. And so rather than getting those numbers and starting to do studies to get those numbers to reevaluate that, they choose not to do that. They just choose, this is what we've done in the past, this is the numbers. Okay, so the reason I'm bringing this up is because this helps us understand about calculations, data, cohorts, right? So if I take a look at, just your experiment, just yours alone, right? If I took a look at your experiment alone, does that tell me consistently about the whole population, or does that tell me just about your experiment? Okay, so could I make honest, valuable decisions based upon a single individual? Right? No. Right. So the whole thing is to look at a cohort, look at a group. Okay. Right. So that's what this is partially about. You're looking at your whole class. Based upon your whole class, we can make assumptions, right? What assumptions did we make? Or we can make one about this whole Mentos. Diet Pepsi. If it's diet, it's going to go higher than the normal, right? So we can clearly say that, right? Based upon the data. That was something that we saw consistently. Now, if your group saw that, but their group didn't see that, and your group saw it, but that group didn't see it, you know, then we'd be like, oh, maybe that isn't the case, right? We'd have some data. But we saw it uniformly through everything, right? So let's say if we decided to do another experiment, right? And we say, okay, so we're going to do the same experiment, but you're going to use diet Sprite. So you use Sprite products, okay? You're going to use Pepsi products, okay? So then that's adding another factor, right? That's adding in whether it's a clear color or whether it's a colored color, right? So that could have an effect on it. Well, but we can also do the fact is that, well, Sprite doesn't have caffeine, but Pepsi does, right? Oh, listen, what if we do Mountain Dew? Will that cause it to increase more? Because Mountain Dew has more caffeine than Pepsi, right? So that's another thing that we can look at, right? And so that would be adding factors. But us making a decision right now, the only thing that we can say about the data is that diet does better than normal, right? We can't say, well, it's based on caffeine, right? Well, because they both have caffeine, right? The only one that didn't have caffeine was the sparkling water, which didn't show anything. So maybe that was a factor. Well, maybe it is a factor, right? And so we have to do a test to be able to figure it out, right? But we can't say anything about Sprite because we didn't do Sprite in this, right? So what racial norming was doing was that it was actually making norms, setting medical standards based upon race without actually doing the testing. And so now they're actually starting to do the testing and they see that, well, African Americans are just like other people. And so all of those people were either misdiagnosed or were not treated because, you know, they had a different set of standards based upon the experiment that one person had done and one person. And so it's important that you guys understand this and that we start making these changes to medicine because we want to be good practitioners, we want to be good doctors, good nurses. And so if you guys have a lot of that old school mentality, we need to get rid of that old school mentality to get you guys into the new school, where you start looking at people as people, right? And that's what it deals with. It deals with humanity more so than anything else, right? And so we're dealing with, unfortunately, even in the medical field, we're dealing with issues of inhumanity, okay? And so you got to look at people as people. People are going to have pain. People are going to have issues. They're going to have the same things that are happening in your life, right? And a good practitioner looks at a person as a person, right? And they take into consideration their circumstances. Okay, and so this kind of, it plays on that part loosely, but just in a more, you know, benign way, you know, we'll come to some of it. Okay, racial norming is putting it right in your face. And unfortunately, you got to start putting things in your face. right? Because there are a lot of things that do need to change. That's one of those things. Okay, any questions on this? Okay, so let's go ahead. What time is it? Man, today is flying by. Okay, so what we're gonna do is, we're gonna take a 10-minute break, 10-minute break. That means we only have an hour, you guys, less than an hour, you guys come back. Okay, so. Okay, so when you guys get back, we're gonna start, we're gonna talk about the labs, and we're gonna go through the details of the labs, and then we're gonna go a little bit of the lecture, and then I'm gonna let you go. How about that? And then tomorrow we'll come in and do the lab.
First thing tomorrow.
Okay, first thing tomorrow. We got our lab coats, we're gonna be looking good doing our labs, right? That's the important part. Yeah,
Oh, God.
you don't need to, because that changes temperature. So
Yeah, I don't know if it's like wrap and stuff.
the Kelly? Yeah, because it's gonna be up and down.
Okay, that's okay.
And that's exactly what it should look like, up and down. That's all you should see. Density is equal to mass over volume. Okay, density is actually, density is always going to be exactly the same thing for the metal that we're talking about at the same temperature. As soon as we start playing around with the temperature, we start fucking around with the temperature. Right? So if we're at 25 degrees, it's always going to be the same density. So at each of your stations here, there are two sets, right? You'll notice two of them are exactly the same, and the other two are exactly the same, right? So you're going to do trial with one, you're going to do a trial with the other, right? They should be exactly the same. They should also have the same density associated with it. So your job is to determine the density. There's a couple ways to determine the density. Since it's mass over volume, we can actually calculate the volume of a cylinder, right?
I'm so sorry. This is for measurements and kitchen, right?
That's right. Okay, so you have two different metals. Part of your job is to use the periodic table. You guys know what P table is? It is the periodic table. If you go to P table, everybody got their phone available? Ptable.com. Where's your laptop? Table.com. Let's.
And then you get a ranch.
Okay, everybody has P table? So if you scroll down the side of P table, you get density. Right? STP stands for standard temperature and pressure. If you click over here, you can put it in units that are more familiar to you, grams per cubic centimeters, which is 1 gram per milliliter. So this would let us know the density of everything at standard temperature and pressure. STP stands for standard temperature and pressure. The way that you select that is by selecting density, STP, right? This would be as if it's a liquid. STP, standard temperature and pressure. Okay, so this gives us the density of all of the metals, right? It gives us the density of some of our non-metals over here. Okay, so one of the first things that I like you guys to do is to kind of play with the P table and to try to identify the metal that you guys believe this to be based upon the density that you calculate. Now, I would say, again, we are working on a budget. These things were bought a long, long time ago, and their concept of pure metal was quite different than my concept of pure metal. And so the densities may be off a little bit. So get it to the best part. But you want to pay attention to a couple of things, right? You're using the density as a reference, but you should also pay attention to things like color, right? Color, feeling, its texture, right? So you should get an idea based upon its color some physical features. Does it smear on stuff? Can I write on paper with it? Is it magnetic? You know, does a magnet stick to it? Let's try to get some magnets. So we want to use characteristics of the metal to make sure that we got to identify the metal. So if you guys take a look at your lab, this is one of the most common things that's missed. Is it's part 4. Density calculation for significant figures. Okay, you see where it says object 1. So what you guys will do is you select object 1, you write down that object, it has a number associated with it, it's 5, right? And your goal is to identify what metal it is, object 1, right? So it says mass description, right, or ID, right? I gave it to you last week. We're ahead of the game, right? This is the one we're going to start off with. The second part of it, the second. Okay. Okay. So you guys go to page 6. Page 6, where it says object 1. So you want to identify what object 1 is. This is called an unknown because you don't know what it is. I know what it is. You don't know what it is, right? And so your goal is to use the characteristics of the metal and also the density to identify what the metal is. Okay. So you want to make sure that you tell me what that metal is. When it says your object, right? This use 1 for file 1, use the other for file 2. Right? And you can just that. Okay. And then you have object 2. Well, here's another set. Okay, right? And you're going to do exactly the same thing as the other set. Okay. Okay, now this is glass, right? So these are graduated cylinders, okay? These are graduated cylinders. The way that you read a graduated cylinder is that you take its meniscus. The meniscus is, have you guys ever noticed like water? What water does when it's in a really tight cylinder, it'll actually go up on the wall, right? And so the meniscus is the very bottom, okay? So you're going to read that meniscus where it's at, and that's going to tell you the volume of the liquid that you have. Right? You don't want to read the top of the meniscus, you want to read the bottom of the meniscus. Okay, so that gives us our volume. Okay. So let's take a look at part 3, page 5. It kind of shows you that. And so when we're trying to calculate volume, there's a couple ways that we can do it. We can do it the hard way by doing measurements. Right? We can take a ruler, do it this way, and calculate it this way. Right? That's going to give us our volume. How would we calculate that?
Would it be volume?
How would I calculate my mass?
Volume times density? Would it be like?
Volume times density is one way of doing it, right?
Okay.
But that's if we knew what the metal was. Do you know what this metal is? Okay, is there any way that I can calculate my mass? Okay, so I got, okay, then we're gonna test this out.
You have to weigh it though, right?
Okay,
I
wait.
would say weigh it. That's what I'm
It's-
saying.
Oh,
I would say you have to weigh it on the.
on the
scale,
what?
right?
Oh, so I have to use a scale. So I need to use my analytical balance to sit there and calculate the mass, right? So I'm gonna use my balances. So I want to be precise. Or do I not want to be precise, or do I care?
Yeah, we have to be precise.
Let's just.
We want to try to be precise, right? Well, or we could just do, okay, I weigh this way, right? That'll do it, right? No, it won't. So we want to make sure that we're using the scale, right? So you also, if you take a look in here, you have what we call a deciscale. A deciscale only goes out to the tenths place. Okay, handheld scale. Don't call it a dope scale. I know that's what you're thinking. You might have to go, right? So this is a deciscale. one of your handheld scale. And some of us may have seen these in other places, you know, I'm not gonna mention where, but they work very well, right? But they have to be on a flat surface, okay? Now, you also want to make sure you don't want to get it contaminated with anything, and these scales have been used for many things. Okay, so, and so what we're gonna do, there's weigh boats associated there. This is also often used as a weigh boat. You know, some of us have seen this used as a weigh boat in many places, right? But let's use those weigh boats there, okay? So just in case. Okay, so you want to put it on the weigh boat and then weigh it, okay? But that means you want to tear. You know what tear means? Now, zero it out, right? So we want to make sure to zero it out when we do that weight, okay? Okay. Well, you learned so much in this class that you thought you would never learn, right? So let's just go again. Oh, instruments.
I'm not done with this.
What was that? We need certain sizes for like really long. So, okay, so let me see. So there's a couple other things I need to talk to you guys about, and we're gonna kind of stray from our lecture notes and kind of get you guys a little bit ahead. One of the things is called significant figures. Have anybody heard of significant figures before? Sig Figs, yes. Sig Figs.
I learned that from the YouTube.
It's Maribel. Excellent. Isn't she? I told you.
You
Right?
guys are ever confused, you watch your channel and you're gonna understand.
Yeah, it's good, and it's real quick, and you're like, man, that makes so much sense now, right? And she's very attractive too, so it's too good, it's too good, right?
I think other people are attracted.
What did she say?
You know what, you know what he was doing? He knows it's that we want to go watch. Guys can't think of a relationship, but it's okay. Right. What do you think?
I had a
If my boyfriend does it,
an
I
instructor that
just
said,
shut.
you know, his philosophy was he would hire attractive tutors, right? He find people that are really smart, but he's really attractive. Because people have a tendency, if they're attractive, they're gonna want to come to the tutor quite a bit, and they'll find reasons to come to that tutor, right? And so it's a very effective technique. Okay, so let's talk about Sig Figs real quick. Right. Okay, now significant figures, Sig Figs. Okay. Significant figures are those numbers that are going to be important, right? That's the way we want to look at it. And the thing is that most students, when we talk about Sig Figs, they just they lose their minds one thing and forget the basics, right? One of the basics is that the number is always going to be the number, right? Significant figures means that we're only going to be taking a look at certain parts of the number, but we're taking a look at the number as a whole. Let me give you an example. So significant figures are non-zero numbers that we're taking into consideration. Sometimes there'll be zero numbers that are sometimes taken into consideration. Okay? So in this case, this is 10,100, right? Now, try to determine the number of significant figures. We always take into account the non-zero numbers. Okay? So how many non-zero numbers do you have to
There's two, but there's 3, 6, 6.
Okay, so there's two. Now, if we have a zero between non-zero numbers, then that number becomes significant. That zero becomes significant. So since this guy is between two zeros, between the two non-zero numbers, then it becomes significant. Okay. So in this case, we have 3 significant figures. These zeros, right? These zeros are placeholders. They're just to let us know that this is 10,100. Now, they're important for being placeholders, but they're not significant. Okay? Meaning that they're not gonna be as important, right? And so they can be rounded up and messed with a lot more than what we should do in those cases. And I'll give you an example. So if we have a 0 between non-zeros, it's going to be considered significant. So if I have, how many significant figures do I have?
5.
Okay, these 5 are significant. Now, it doesn't change the value of the number. It just means that when I'm doing some mathematical functions, I'm going to do some certain types of rounding and pay a little more attention to those numbers than I pay attention to those, right? Okay. These are still important. They still hold their place, right? Okay, so commonly when I talk to students about significant figures, and I'll say, okay, so how many significant figures does this have? They say, okay, it's 3, right? And then I say, okay, now if there's 3 significant figures, what is the value of this number?
2.
It's still the same. The value is still the same, right? So the first instinct that somebody says, what they'll do is they say, oh, significant, so that means it's 101, right? Now think about this logic, right? If you earned $10,100 and I paid you $101, what would you do?
Go to jail.
You're going to jail, right? You robbed me, right? You'd be upset with me, wouldn't you? Right? So you want to make sure that you understand when we talk about significant numbers, it doesn't change the value of the number, right? It just tells me that, oh, these 3 numbers are going to be really important when we do other things too. Okay? Now, and everybody's going to ask me this, why the hell do you need significant figures, right? Why are significant figures important? Right? And that's what everybody else. Now, the problem is that not everybody's piece of equipment is the same, right? We talked about my pieces of equipment, right? I told you my stuff is dated, right? My stuff is old. So there are new, more modern analytical scales that will go down to 0.00000. And I mean, we're talking about precision, like really, really precise. We don't have that, right? We're a force, we're in the 4 countries, right? So we got to make do with what we got, right? I can't go out and buy another piece of equipment every week as much as I want to. Like economists do that. They don't do that, right? This equipment is probably, I'm probably the oldest in. Okay, some of this equipment in here is older than I am, right? So that would kind of put it in perspective. I have chemicals that are from the 1800s.
Really?
Yeah,
They still work?
That's the problem. They don't, right? That's been part of the problem. So we're in the process of changing some of those, right? So we have stuff that's pretty dated, okay? We're getting new stuff. You guys are actually getting a lot of new stuff. You guys are going to pick a lot of new things and stuff. We're excited about it. But there are a lot of things that we don't have. Okay? Because of that, because not everybody's pieces of equipment are the same, we have to take in consideration the era associated with that equipment. So Sig Figs help us kind of figure out era, right? So if we take a look at this number, this is 10,100, right? Now these zeros here, right, they kind of mean something to us, right? They kind of mean that we're not 100% sure if they're really zeros, right? We're guessing, right? We're pretty sure about this number, this being a 1, right? But it might not necessarily be a 1, it might be a 0, and this might be a 9, right? But it's close enough to 1 that we can suggest that it's 1. Right? That's what it's really saying. Okay? It's saying that these numbers here, we're not so sure about. It could be a really good 1 here and a 1 here, right? But we don't know because our equipment is a piece of shit, right? And so we just put zeros there to say, okay, yeah, zeros, right? Have you guys ever weighed yourself on the scale? And you're like, you look at the scale and it's fluctuating between, you know, it says 220-ish, right? And you know, we want to say ish. And you're like, okay, if it's 5 pounds over 220, so it's 225. But it's fluctuating, right? It's dropping down to 23 or something. You don't tell anybody, I'm 225. What do you tell them?
220.
I'm 220. Fuck that. I'm 220, right? I'm 220. I'm not 225, right? Because you want to look tighter than what it is, right? So you don't want to go to that upper weight. Now that's exactly what we're doing here. Is that we're getting that little fluctuation, that 200, I'm 220-ish, right? So if I say 220, that's close enough, right? Yeah, right? Okay, so that's exactly what we're doing here with Sig Figs, right? Does that make a little more sense? Okay, now the thing is that we're offered in the world that we live in today, we're going to be collecting data. So you may get a patient from Zimbabwe, you may get a patient from Nigeria, and you're doing a study on these patients, right? And you're saying, okay, this medication is doing this, and so you're gonna get data that's going to be collected from all of these different patients, right? And so, like I said, some people's instruments are not as good as others. So they're going to vary in terms of the numbers and the figures that they're using based upon the equipment that they have. And so you want to make sure your data is as close to being valid as possible that you can get it, right? And the way that we do that is by sort of accuracy, yeah. But it's kind of like it's allowing us to give that little bit of flexibility to that data, right? Like I said, I was 220. Not 225. Scale is fluctuating. Okay, so does that make a little more sense? So when we talk about Sig Figs, we're trying to determine the Sig Figs. We know that if they're in between non-zero numbers, they're going to be significant. Okay. Now, decimal point is very, very important. If I decide I'm going to put a decimal point here, right? It says by using that decimal point, it's saying a whole lot to me. What it's saying is, it's saying that I am sure about this zero. You know how like I was telling you about, I'm 220 and a fluctuate, right? But if I had a zero there, right, that means that I'm sure about that zero, right? So if I had 220, period, I am sure that that is a zero, right? So by me putting that period there, that means that I'm sure about it. So that means that all of these become significant. Okay, so by me putting a decimal point there, I'm saying I am sure, right? I'm 100% sure, right? So then if I start putting more zeros after that decimal point, because I put that decimal point there, I'm saying I'm sure about these zeros, right? Because the rule of thumb is we're lazy, right? We're not lazy. I'm lazy. Right? You know? So anyway, I have a lazy streak in it. I'm not going to do anything extra unless there's a significance to it, unless it's important. So if I take the time to put a decimal point there, put zeros after it, it all becomes significant. So how many significant digits do I have? 7. Okay, so that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, so I would have 7 significant figures. All of those would be significant. Compared to this, which I only had 3, because I didn't put that decimal point. Okay. Are you guys with me?
Yeah.
Okay. So now I put a decimal point here, right? But I have to put a decimal point here because this number is so small, right? So these zeros here are just going to be placeholders, right? They're just holding places. Okay. So these guys aren't going to be considered significant, right? Even though I have a decimal, they're not going to be considered significant. The only thing that's going to be considered significant is going to be the 2. So I have only 1 significant figure.
Right?
Yes, these are your leading zeros. Leading zeros. Okay. Yeah, but again, think of them as places. Places. Now, if I decided to put another 0 here, that's telling you what? It's significant, that's right. So I would have 2 significant, right? That means I took extra time because I put an extra 0 there, right? It takes time to write that extra 0, does it not? That means that I'm sure about that 0. Okay, so it becomes significant. Okay, you guys got it?
So
Yes.
So if they're leading, they don't count?
Yes, so if they're leading here, these are leading zeros. These guys don't count, they're just placeholders.
What if they're behind, like a bunch behind?
If I have a whole bunch behind now,
Yeah,
they're gonna count because I took the extra time to write them, right?
okay,
Just think about it, when I write them, unless they're important,
okay.
I'm lazy.
Oh, no, it was the finger.
Okay. That's right, only the ones behind. You got a question? Okay, you guys want to test this out? Okay, so let's see.
Okay, I got it. Oh. Like work too hard. Okay, like, I think it's all the hair.
Yeah, I think so.
Oh, first one. Let me put this on there, so you guys can all see it. Can you see it? Okay.
Oh, no.
Hey, DJ, I'll start with you.
Oh, wow. So the first one is
Three Sigs. So, Sig Figs. So we have 3. What about the next one? Volunteer?
2.
7. Okay, everybody? Yes. 3. Last.
6.
Okay, you guys got it. Piece of cake?
Yep.
Any questions?
Nope.
Great, that's good. Yeah.
So what, I'm sorry, what are you gonna put our practice test up?
I'm gonna put your practice test up tomorrow.
Okay.
Is it multiple times? Can we take it like multiple times?
You take it, I think it's set up there. Nobody got it. Okay, so now addition and subtraction. I know it's give me a second.
Is it worth it?
Is it worth what? Every time you get points, you'll get points. If you attempt, you get points. Okay? Don't attempt it, you don't get points. What was that? Attempt equals full credit for your practice. I have to modify it, tweak it. I always do that with us for some reason.
So I can just open it, close it.
No, actually, I think you have to do it. I'm still trying to figure that part out. Last time I had. You have to do a certain percentage.
But I know that we can.
Okay, real quick, I know you guys don't want to get out of here. Okay. Now, when we're doing addition, and we're taking into consideration Sig Figs. Okay. What you need to do is, you need to pay attention to where your Sig Figs are gonna be. So here, how many Sig Figs left? Are you sure?
Top, right?
Top?
Oh, yeah, that's 5.
5.
So we have 5 Sig Figs, right?
Yep.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, the second number, how many Sig Figs left?
2.
I have one Sig Fig, right? So what we're gonna do is, my voice here. Okay, so what you're gonna do is you're gonna draw a line between that significant figure and a non-significant, right? And then you're gonna use this number here, right, to determine the significance. So write this down, it's 1, 1, 1, right? Like 0, 0. We add this up. That add up, right? True. That's good. Okay. So that's on slide. Out. So it's 111. Okay, now, we know that this guy only has one significance, and that significant number is in the fifth. So then we'll take a look at this guy. If this guy is greater than 5, we round up. If it's less than 5, we leave it alone. Okay? So, this number, is it greater than 5?
No.
No. So then the answer for this would be 110.
Where'd you put it?
Where did I get the 0?
Because it did it round up.
Because I take a look at this number here, right? This number here wasn't greater than 5, right? So I don't round this one up, I leave it alone. So then this becomes a 0. I'm not sure about it. Okay, because we don't know about this number, right? We don't know about this 0. We don't know about anything that's following that 0, right? The only thing that we know is that we're sure about that 1. That's the only thing that we know. Because that's uncertain, that affects how we do the addition of two things, one that's certain and one that's uncertain. Okay, I want you guys to think about that. We'll finish this up. We'll talk more about it tomorrow before we get started with the lab. We need it for the lab. Okay? Yeah, if it's not ready.
Yeah.
Like 6 months. I gotta add it.
Then I want you to think. Okay, that's good.
So I called my insurance to fix my car because the whole accident. I was the whole, to lift the car, the whole car. Everything is going like, the fire out, everything's gone. So then the back, I guess the back got messed up too. I don't know, so I just called my insurance. I don't know, the car, I guess.
I am, but like not the second. I couldn't.